All right, good evening, everybody. This is episode 27 of the Unfiltered Race Fans Only podcast. First off, we got to apologize for the very, very long hiatus between my work travel and moving, and then somebody decided to go get a personal life. Damn you, Blake. We've all had a lot going on, so we apologize. We know there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to do a separate episode to kind of cover the stuff. That way, if anybody wants to hear about it, they can, and if they don't, that's okay. So we're going to pick up today. We're just going to talk about Chicago and leading into Sonoma and what we thought of the race weekend. So this weekend was presumably the last street race at Chicago, and the first, if it is the last, and only dry one we got for the
Yeah.
Cup. They projected rain. Uh, for once, we didn't have a massive flood watch. And so it was nice that we actually got to see what this place runs like in the dry, for better or worse. Um, you know, we got to see the Xfinity Series in the Cup. So with that, we'll start with what we saw this weekend. Um, the Hendrick cars all had problems. That was shocking to see them start from the back. And they didn't really race all that well up toward the front. I was kind of expecting more, usually because, Byron's usually good at the road courses. Larson's pretty good at the road courses. Chase Elliott statistically in the past has been good at the road courses, and Bowman was our winner there last year. So they weren't as strong as I was expecting. But then again, starting from the back, you got to get on an opposite strategy. Um, so yeah, well, I guess we'll start there. What'd you think about that?
Well,
All the
Bowman definitely had the best strategy by far. When him and Reddick and I believe two others pitted uh, after everybody else had pitted, I mean, that's what got them all their track position. That's what got Reddick up to third. Nobody was going to beat SVG. This type of track is his bread and butter, and so I think if we have more street courses, which rumored we're going to San Diego next year, I'd say he'll be the one to beat there too. Now, I don't think he'll be the one to beat at Sonoma. He hasn't really shown anything there, in my opinion. It's kind of, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just not his cup of tea there.
Did he race there
So,
last year? I don't
yeah,
remember. Okay, so
pretty sure he did, and he didn't wow anybody.
yeah.
So, um, I, but the one that blew my mind for the weekend was William Byron. I mean, if there's a shitting of the bed, the 24 shit the bed this weekend. They went in there with a 37-point lead over Chase Elliott and they left it with 13. I
Yeah.
mean, we all knew about the damaged body, but I didn't know about the clutch issues. And it was a clutch that took him out of the race after two laps.
Yep.
And you just kind of wonder what the hell Rudy Fugel's doing. I mean, when I saw the wreck, I thought backup. And you kind of got to wonder if you use the backup, you're probably not having that clutch issue. I'm assuming the backups have their own clutches.
Yeah, I don't know if you go to a backup, if you have to pull the engine from the car that you already have or not. So or if it's already got a motor in it because of the two race sealed engine program deal. So maybe you would have to pull it and that part would transfer since all that's part of the powertrain and everything. But overall, like you're talking about shitting in the bed, over the last, I'd say 4 weeks, Rudy Fugel and Byron have gone from almost a guaranteed insurmountable gap on their way to three race win bonus points, by grabbing the regular season championship to throwing it away. Like
Yeah,
they brought four or five people right back within it. There's a 30-point difference between them and fifth place. And Chase Elliott, the king of Mr. Consistency, won last week at Atlanta. Um, now that he's got the win off his back, he and Alan Gustafson, they've been the best at gathering points all year. I can only imagine how many points Byron and Larson both would have if they hadn't, each stepped on themselves the last handful of weeks. Um,
I mean,
but
we
they
can't really
both,
put Atlanta on them because Atlanta was Atlanta.
yeah,
But the races before that, he didn't do very well at Mexico,
yeah,
and Chase Elliott's been on outside of this weekend. He's been on the ball. all
Yep.
year. He's got an average finish of like 10.5 or something. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
So
And so we're down to 7 races to go, and it's anybody's race for the right now for the the regular season championship. HMS
yeah,
overall struggling at road racing with the when you compare the past history of Larson and Byron both winning and Elliott winning. I was just surprised in general when I saw that they were all starting the back due to, the changes and
wrecking the
everything.
cars. They
Well,
all four wrecked the
wrecking the
cars.
cars,
But
unapproved adjustments, etc. Like I wouldn't have expected them to be off to start the weekend in general because when you look at their road racing pedigree between Larson's won Watkins Glen, he's won Sonoma, um, he's won Coda too, right? Or no, Byron's won
no,
Coda,
he's won the Roval.
won the Roval. Chase
Won the
Elliott's
Roval twice. He ran good at Coda the first year.
Chase Elliott's
Um,
won the Glen. Like just when you think about their prowess at a road racing, and then you see all of them have to start from back there, that's just atypical of them. That's not
yeah, the
normal.
fact
So,
that they all four wrecked in weight in certain ways is just insane. And I was watching the ticker because of the new. I can't stand road race qualifying.
yeah.
Having 20 minutes to qualify, and they don't always show whoever you're rooting for. I would much rather just go back to single car qualifying and
I thought we
let
were
it.
going back to that actually, but I thought they had mentioned that at the beginning of the year, and that yet here we are still doing this other
Yeah.
nonsense.
And so, but anyway, I was watching the ticker, and Larson was only a tenth off of SVG, and then all of a sudden he's nowhere. Like he dropped off, and he was 4 seconds slower than the field. And I'm like, what the hell? And then the next time you see him, he's got a scrape down the entire right side of his car. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
he must have pancaked it somewhere. So you know, he did qualify 14th, but because of the pancake, put it to the back. So you know, you losing points that way too. You losing stage points and
yeah.
so on and so forth. But my thing
Let's
for the weekend is the Bubba Bowen deal. Like what?
let's get to that. So we start the race. Our guys, or the HMS team as a whole struggled, had to start from the back. We start the race. SVG's on the pole, pretty much to be expected. Um, Quickly loses the lead to McDowell, and within what, I think 10 laps or so, host of our wrecks, if I remember correctly.
It was lap three.
Lap three. Okay, so he cuts that corner too close, which we've seen F1 and Indy cars do that all the time. Max Verstappen is like the king of in the street courses, getting his wheel like right up, almost brushing that. And
It's
host
like
of ours just
he's like
misjudged.
he's trying to buff it.
Yeah, he tried to pull a Verstappen there. It didn't work. So, and because of the tightness of the corner, and once he hit it, it shot him into the other one. The It bounced him off like a ping pong ball or a pinball in there, and then everybody coming around the corner just plowed right into him. The thing I was unsure of was okay, so he bounces off, he hits the wall, he comes back across, and yeah, the toe link, like the real wheel assembly is destroyed. I think he spun around on purpose. That's just me. Like I don't he came back across and spun around, and I don't think that part was necessary. I think that's a Carson Hocevarism. Uh,
I don't know. You
it's
listen to him
hard
on
to prove.
TV
I'd
and
like
they
to see the
said that
telemetry, but when he's
they
coming
said
back
that
this
when
way,
when
it
these
just looked
cars
like he yanked
get
it the other
hurt,
way. So sorry, go ahead.
they said when these cars get damaged and the toe link breaks, there's just no control on them. And his entire left front was just gone. So I think that there's just no control on it, no matter what happened.
Yeah. Well, you
Like,
just didn't see many people when they break a toe link come around like that. Usually it pulls one way or the other. And once he was shot to one direction, it seems like he yanked it the other way to spin it. Obviously, he wasn't trying to pile everybody up, but I think he was trying to draw the caution once he
yeah,
destroyed the car. And I think that's just another young driver stupidity thing. But either
yeah.
way, he took out a lot of good cars early on that, Austin Dillon qualified well, had some good speed. We saw Kyle Busch had good speed. And then you got resulting cars piling in there. Brad Keselowski trying to slow down, gets drove in the back of as he's coming to him and destroys his car, destroys the 38, Zane Smith. Uh,
Uh, the 34, it was 34, the 6, the 13. the three. Yeah, they're, I mean, ridiculous. And we were talking on the phone about this for a second, but this is why I don't think we need to have a street course. You can't have these huge 34, 3,500 pound cars on a street course and have this happen and block the racetrack and be okay with it. I mean, yeah, there was parts of the weekend where the racing was good, and it's neat to see them have to manhandle these cars in these tight corners, but really and truly, there's only three passing zones the entire damn track.
Well, three passing zones for everybody but SVG.
Yeah, if you're
Attached
SVG and have a magic
in
wand,
all
you
of
can
it.
pass anywhere
Yeah.
you want.
Um,
But
I will say I'm contrary to you on this. Like I agree this track design, obviously by the walls on both sides, is very limiting. If there's a wreck, you pretty much can't get away from it. But that's how I feel about restrictor plate racing too. If somebody has a
yeah,
wreck in front of you, you're all but damned do you do. If you damned if you don't, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to get in it unless you somehow luck your way through it. So I wouldn't discredit it just because of that, because we have six other races that are like that. I'm not a
right.
fan of those either, but uh, yeah, I'm obviously not a fan of people not having options. I think the walls are obviously what makes the race unique and challenging, but at the same time, like I said, somebody makes a mistake in front of you, you're almost guaranteed to be in it. But there were several single car accidents that people did miss. Whether it was the 21, the 47, uh, Bubba, like where people, Kyle Busch, where people either spun, bounced it off the barriers, whatever, and they did miss it. So, I mean, there was plenty of cautions, plenty of, on track passing throughout. I will say, you know, the coverage they kept, yeah, and while McDowell was leading, I felt like they focused on the front so much, where I wanted him to show the other battles throughout the field. But because SVG was keeping him in arm's reach, I could see why they were covering it like that, because he was only like a car length back at any given time. And anytime he wanted to reach out and touch him, he could. He could just outbrake him into a corner and close that 3 to 4 car gap and be like right there again,
Yep.
which showed you just how much he was saving. And in his own admission in post race, he said that like when McDowell had his throttle issue, and I was wondering if he was gonna be able to challenge for him or not. And then unfortunately, we didn't get to see that materialize. Uh, that being said, SVG flat out said like when I got back there, I was just kind of riding. I wasn't going to use up my stuff. Um, he doesn't panic like some of the other folks when they lose the lead at a road course. He just bides his time and works his way back up there.
Yep.
At the end of stage one, when they were pitting, uh, and he pitted, McDowell stayed out. He went in and got tires. I mean, he put on a clinic. He was passing those guys left and right after the stage started, like putting them in positions where he just blew their doors off. It was impressive to watch. It just showed you what an advantage he has with his road racing experience in the V8 Supercar series over our guys. And our guys are good, but I mean, they ain't got nothing on him.
No,
So,
especially on tight courses like this. I
yeah.
kind of want to touch the,
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
brought up the broadcast. I feel like TNT, I mean, I know they're the same people, but man, TNT is not anywhere near prime.
No,
It, it's, I'm sorry, but it's just the graphics are lacking. The the whole thing's lacking, honestly. It's just like Byron was out and I didn't even know it.
you're not wrong.
Like
Like I
they
didn't,
never mentioned Byron, the point leader, falling
I
out of the
didn't
race.
realize he
Did I
was
miss
out
that?
until one of our buddies, Kevin, mentioned it, and he was complaining in one of our group chats that we're parts of, where he was complaining about Rudy, and I'm like, where is Byron? And then I see that he's out. I'm like, oh, I don't recall them ever mentioning. I don't even remember seeing him on the ticker. Like that's how irrelevant the
Yeah,
season
like they
is.
never mentioned the point leader falling out of the race on lap two with a clutch issue. Like that, I'm sorry, but that is bad broadcasting.
And I do
It's
wonder to
terrible.
give them small amount of credit. I do wonder if the wreck on lap three by Hocevar overshadowed that talking point for them. Like there was so much going on with that they never got to go back to it. If that had happened, let's say 10 laps later, would they
Possible.
to it and said, all right, that, you know, Because they did talk about not Byron specifically, but they did talk about it in the post race, which again, I would say I agree with you. TNT is definitely not Prime, even though it's a lot of the same people. But we're at the mid season now, where we had Prime and now we've got TNT. And it's sad that it takes till mid-season where we get like genuine, we got good post-race coverage from Prime and we've got a good post-race segment from TNT. I enjoy having both as an option because it gives you a lot of, coverage of what happened throughout the race that maybe you didn't get a chance to see because
Right.
there's developing stories with the brackets, even though I think most people don't care. I personally don't.
Yeah,
Um, I
it's
could be
hard to
wrong,
get in the
but,
brackets now, but it's
you
cool to see Ty Dillon in the third round. But outside of that,
right. Like
it's
I want to. That's the one I want to win. I want Tyrone Biggums Dillon to like sweep the table, just run it, get
could
a
you
$1 million
imagine
colleague.
they may not do this next year if Ty Dillon wins the damn thing.
Well, I would hope that they would do it again, but I would hope they would structure the races. If you're going to do it, you got to put this thing over the right cluster of races. You
Yep.
can't start out the opening round of the bracket on a roulette wheel. That's just a
No.
reality. And they
You
do
make
that.
the roulette wheel the final race, not the
Yeah.
first race.
Yeah, you make
Yep.
the heads up the roulette wheel, but you don't do, all right, here's everybody's brackets, however many tens of thousands, and it's not a lot because NASCAR is not that popular as much as they like to think they are. NCAA tournaments, millions upon millions of brackets. NASCAR, probably 100,000. So, um, it's not that big a deal to most people. But yeah, we started last week on a roulette wheel. Then we go to another roulette wheel, really, where
And then you go to another roulette wheel next
and
week
you go
at
into another
Sonoma.
roulette wheel next week. By the time you get to the heads up race at Indy, you're at a regular race, but all of your people you would expect to be there have been taken out by all the roulette,
Yeah.
spins. Um, I don't know how we talked about it at the beginning of the year when we were picking our picks, me, you, and Chris, of who we think is going to win and where and why. And we were just kind of going through the schedule at the same time, like having all these road courses bunched up like this. Like the first half of the season, SVG was building and learning in his first full season. You know, I see no reason to think that he won't win potentially Watkins Glen. I don't know that he'll win Sonoma, but he could. I mean, I'm not going to discount him. I mean, he won Mexico, and that's an open race course. So,
Yeah.
and he almost won Watkins Glen last year. So, I mean, if he wins the next two road races heading into the playoffs, you're pretty much he's all but a lock to get to the second round where the Roval
Well,
is.
if he does that, just think about this. If he does that and Larson doesn't win again, and Hamlin doesn't win again, and Bell doesn't win again, SVG is going to have the most wins going into the playoffs.
He could be the number one seed.
No, he
He
ain't going to be the number one seed.
well,
I
he won't be
mean,
the number one seed on because of the regular season championship, but he could definitely be the number one seed based on wins, which would be mind blowing when you think about
yeah.
it.
I
Um,
mean, it's probably going to be when it comes to playoff points, it'll probably be Larson, and then probably Chase, if I'm guessing, and then Denny, and then probably Byron. But then right behind that will be SVG, and that's just insane to me
mhm.
if that happens.
Yeah, definitely. That'll
But he
be
is getting
wow.
better on ovals. I mean, he is. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep, he's a
so
quick learner. He did well last year. Like he ran well at Bristol. He's runs well, Martinsville. Like he's gonna be, this is his first year. So the fact that he's already scored two wins in his first year, and yes, they're where we expect him to win, but the fact that he's already won, and now he's got three more chances for wins for the rest of the season, even if he does nothing more than make it to the second round of the playoffs in his first year. That's a win in itself. You look at when Ross
but
Chastain did his first year with Trackhouse and he made it to the final four. I mean, and if SVG progresses, I think he'll, depending on how long he wants to do this, I could see him making it to the round of eight, consistently in 3 years from now because
I
he has
mean,
those six opportunities plus the
this
others.
year he's got the chance, like we're talking about. He's got the chance of winning two more road courses before. the playoffs start. Not to mention they are your wild card. You know, you got your Daytona left,
Yep.
and there is I mean there the three tracks in the first round are kind of wild cards in themselves because they're flat track, and Bristol.
Yep. And their flat tracks were
So
taking as a heavy premium,
yes,
and where's he a
that's what I was
specialist in
getting at.
braking, his
So
braking
that
capability.
that would not surprise me if SPG goes into the playoffs with, you know, he'd have 20 whatever playoff points
Yeah.
and he skates through, and then if he wins the Roval, he's in around eight in his first year. I mean, it, it's doable with if he wins the next two road courses because he'll need those bonus points to get through that first round for
So
sure.
if he could get to the first round with 20 bonus points, I'm confident he'll skate through to the second round. And then if he can survive with no major mistakes or setbacks in the second round because the points reset and just has a good day at the Roval that he's capable of a top three finish, he goes on to the next round. So
Yep.
I agree. I think that's very attainable. Um, he obviously swept the weekend. Good for him. In a JRM car, good, good race in there. Him and Zilich both, the double Red Bulls, you know,
Yep.
Team RBR
Village
has
had to
been,
come from the back to do it too.
yep. Um, so let's see. Who else? Overall, like we said, wasn't very rainy, so the tires did seem to matter. That was good. The tires were important. In the past, the we haven't seen a lot of passing on the road courses, so I think the softer tire progression, continues to show its benefit for us there.
Right.
Um, and then, I will say, we don't have anything else to compare it to because the other two were rain inhibited, but I would like a more. I don't love the track, but the racing was better than some of our other road races. So,
Right.
um,
It's definitely better in Coda.
oh yeah, yep.
I'm all for
Coda's
getting
too
rid of
wide.
Coda.
Coda's too wide, where this being so,
Well,
narrow, I think promotes better racing.
the problem with Coda is not the track. It's the fact that they don't have the curving laid down.
Well, that's what I mean. The
You're
track is so
the
wide
track
for the
limit.
Formula One cars, and we don't enforce track limits, so we allow them such wide arcs. Where here, with the track narrowness, it keeps them together. Like nobody ever really spread way out, so that was
Right.
good. Um, So toward the end of the race there with all the varying strategies, at one point I thought Reddick was going to get up there with his fresher tires and maybe at least try to challenge him within a couple get in
No,
within
I
car
don't
lengths,
think
but
SVG was trying. I think he was
oh
just
no, I don't think he was going to beat him. I thought he was going to at least get up there and like make it look interesting, but um the other guy he had to pass in a Toyota, uh Ty Gibbs, they've been on a roll ever since Gabe Hart started sitting on the pit box. They've kind of
no.
got themselves
Yep.
pointing the right
And
direction.
Ty is going to win sometime soon. I think he's getting close, and it might come on a road course. I mean, we're giving it to SVG, but he's been giving him a little bit, you know, at Mexico, and now he's finished second here. So I think
It would not
he's on
surprise
to
me to
something.
see Tyrone get his first win at Sonoma and drink the wine, which I don't think he's old enough to drink the wine, so he
No,
might have to have some red Kool-Aid. But that would be good to see him.
I'm pretty sure he's 20. I'm not 100% sure.
But so talking about Ty Gibbs for a minute, ever since they put Gabe Hart up there, to kind of get the pit calls consistent, how do you think Denny Hamlin feels about that? You left me because you thought I had too much going on to go run as the competition director for JGR, and now you're sitting up on top of the 54 pit box. And we had a very consistent winning perennial season going every year, contending for the Final Four, etc. You know, Denny
I
hasn't
don't
said
think
anything on his podcast, but I mean, and he's
I
done well with Gale, but at the same time, I would be a little upset. Like, hey,
I
you
don't I
me.
wouldn't be upset because my year's going great. I missed a race and I'm only 43 out of the point lead.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'm sure, I bet you he's probably regretting skipping. Mexico now, even though he,
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think so. When you think about everybody having the double
well,
jeopardy,
I'm talking about the racing only,
right,
racing
right.
only.
Oh, yeah, giving up the points. I agree. I don't think he's
Yeah,
missing Mexico by any means. I don't think any of the drivers
yeah.
want, but other than Daniel Suarez.
Well, speaking of Daniel Suarez, it was in
Yep.
the news this past week, and I know you. I didn't know if you were wanting to hold that for the other
But
episode,
no,
but
we can talk about it because
I
Daniel
feel like
came out and talked about
it's
it this week.
it did come out this week, and we all said it preseason. This was his last year, and especially with Connor Zilic progressing the way he or has been doing. I mean, he goes to Pocono, never seen the damn place, and wins it. I
Mhm.
mean, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he's showing up and learning real quick, and he's not he's not really lighting the world on fire when he runs in Cup, but he's staying out of trouble with the exception of Coda, but that wasn't really his fault.
That, I agree there. And I don't know what everybody else's expectations are for him. I don't know if they have like the SVG type expectation for him because of all his other success. Like for me, I just wanted Zilic to show up in Cup and the handful of debuts he was going to get, keep your nose clean, finish all the laps, try and finish somewhere in the top 20 and don't tear your car up. If you do that, that's a good day. Just go and learn because it is a big step to go from here to here.
Yep.
So, and I think he's done that other than, Coda where, not by his own doing, got, taken out. And then pretty much from there on out wasn't a factor the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think Red Bull is really just chomping at the bit to get back in the Cup now. I think that they're they're probably looking at what merch is doing, merchandise. Like I'm sure when the diecast came out and it fulfilled, they're both getting made. They're
Yeah.
probably like, okay, this is good, and probably just, you know, I
Well,
just kind of wonder where Daniel's going to end up because there's nothing really open.
no. And
Xfinity
so,
rides, but I mean,
yeah, to
Rick
that
Ware's
point.
being sold, so maybe that. But
Well, let's finish the race and then we'll come to all that because I got a lot of
uh,
different points
I
just from
got
what came out this weekend to talk about that between the Rick Ware sale, Daniel and his comments, now that it's been mentioned, and Zillich, Red Bull. Like I got a bunch of different stuff there. So, um, all right. So moving on toward the end there, as we got down to the winding laps, felt like Bubba and Bowman raced each other hard. I think Bowman was trying to race him clean, and Bubba kept, pinching him off from what I was seeing. And Bubba wasn't, at the end of the day, Bubba wasn't racing smart. You and Bowman are both in contention to make the final playoffs, and this is what Bubba did last year too. Like he took himself out between the one-off winners and the giving up of points. You know,
yep,
you were you were there to finish in the top 10. You had that opportunity, and Bowman had the better car at that point. You could have let him go, but you let your emotions get the better of you. You kept running him wide. You pinched him off into the wall. And eventually, he let you get away with a couple of them without turning you, and he had the opportunity. And at a certain point, he just stopped lifting and just let you send yourself because Bubba tried to pinch him off on that one straightaway, and Bowman he just barely burped the throttle. Bubba packed the wall, came back, and Bowman just drove through him and pushed him out of the way, which is what he should have done. Like, at a certain point, you got to race heads up. Like, you're going to, for another year, miss the playoffs because of your own bad decisions. You
mhm.
threw away a bunch of points. Forget the
Well,
$1 million in the bracket. They were heads up against each other. Just, we have 7 opportunities left to make the playoffs. You haven't won yet. You cannot afford to be giving away the points because there's still the potential, there's probably 2 people going to make it on points, and you just put yourself on the cut line when you were firmly in
and,
before.
and Ryan Reese is knocking on the door now, -2.
Yep. Yep. And Ryan Priest ran well in Mexico. Um, you know, he's a good road racer. He's also a great short track racer, and he's been the flagship fastest car for a lot of this year for RFK. That being said, Brad and them have found their speed when it comes to the bigger tracks. I expect Brad to be a threat when we get to Indianapolis, when we get to Darlington. Like, he's they've found the speed. They just dug such a hole earlier this year with bad luck. Things like happened to them today. No fault of their own. He was trying to slow down to keep out of that wreck, and he got driven into it. So, um, you know,
That's another thing. Chris Busher, he had what was it, a throttle? No, that wasn't. That was the
no,
second
his
one. But
wasn't throw. His
Chris,
sounded like a valve train issue, like either
yeah,
a down a piston
so
or spring.
he lost points today due to that, to the
Yeah.
cut line as well. So lots of cut line issues, and with the Bubba part, I just don't think he's him and his crew chief, either one of them. They need the crew chief should have gone on the radio and said, "We need to think about points,
Well,
not."
Freddie Kraft always talks, all this and that. He's been with Bubba forever, but Freddie's such a jokester. At some point, Freddie's got to grow up and like get Bubba under control. You're a spotter, be like, hey man, like, hey, I agree. Him and the crew chief need to get on in Bubba's ear and be like, focus up. Like, you know, don't dig the hole worse. Like, we spun out, we came back to here, we got back up in here, and you just dug the hole again. Like, you know, because I do wonder how many, Reddick. It's truthfully, it's shocking to see that organization winless this far into the season, especially with Reddick being the, regular season champion last year. Granted,
Right.
Larson missed a race, and that's how he got it. It wasn't because he was the best. Larson spotted him, 60 points essentially. Uh,
Yep.
but still, he made it to the final four. He won races last year. This year, he can't seem to close the deal. And I do wonder how much of it is the lawsuit thing continuing to carry on and all that stuff in the background. But anyway, um, but yeah, there were a lot of people that gave up points this weekend unnecessarily with mistakes. Stenhouse lost a bunch more points. Um, Hocevar himself. Good thing that Barry's already got a win from early on. We know once we get back to the ovals, he'll be fast. He'll be in the top 10. Um, so no big
Yeah.
issue there for him.
And we might be seeing a problem come Tuesday with Chastain,
Yep,
possibly.
yep. Because Logano said that Chastain openly admitted, like, yeah, I wrecked you. I purposely finched you. So we'll see if that has anything
I
to
mean,
any to blow back.
honestly, Logano deserves it.
Which
I say that
Logano or
as a
Chastain?
Larson fan because Larson followed him for half the damn race. He blocked
Oh, Joe
every
is a
damn.
notorious blocker.
Yes, yes, but I mean, the moment Larson would go this way, he'd go that way. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like I'm shocked that Larson didn't punt him because it was every damn time he got to him and he poked his nose out, he would just fly
Yeah.
down in there and just like it's like
Well,
you can. I think you.
Joey,
I think
it,
once you block 4 times,
are we talking about
you're
Ross Chastain or Joey here? Just make sure.
Joey.
Okay, so I want to make sure because I just wanted to bring up the fact that remember, Joey's also the one that came from, 12 turns back and drove in as fast as he possibly could at the Indy Road course and plowed through everybody, a couple years ago. So Joey's the one who's like, I see a hole, here I come. So I don't have too much sympathy for Joey when it comes to road racing because he's not a good road racer. He's always in the mix for causing trouble. Um, just my opinion. I gave him all his props last year, win when it matters. And it's well deserved. But yeah, he drives like an idiot at road courses, pretty much always has. Um, unless he has the dominant car like back in his Xfinity days when he was in the GameStop cars
Yep.
since then. So not too big a surprise there to see him struggle. Blaney struggled. Cindric being a good road racer, I was surprised to see him, but he was, kind of like Bubba, self-inflicted stupidity there. Could have raced smarter. Sometimes, most of them know you're not going to beat SVG. So your goal should be if you can't win, maximize your points. And if you
Hmm.
can't gain a bunch of points, try not to lose a bunch of points. And I feel like a lot of people failed the assignment today.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
you know, Tyrone Gibbs, Ty Dillon, like they both aced it. Like I said, for the bracket challenge, even though most people don't care, I want to see Tyrone Dillon hoist that trophy and that check just because that'll be hilarious as hell to see. Now you have no winners in the bracket left, and You
Yeah,
know,
Nemechek beat Chase, right?
yep. So Chase
That's
is out.
awesome.
Wouldn't have picked that. Wouldn't have picked, there are several of these, like when you think about it straight up, you wouldn't have picked it, but it's just the way it's gone down. So, um, yeah, gonna be interesting to see who's still there when we get to the end and who ends up being the ones that face off. So, yeah, not much else in my mind to talk about with that race. Xfinity was, similar in nature. Again,
I didn't get to watch it because my satellite doesn't work very well, and the wonderful people at CW don't have it on the app. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, the you know SVG got back in the pack, kind of like he did today. Drove through. Maybe it was a little over aggressive, but I I feel like when we go road racing, most of the both series tend to lose their mind. So I don't
mhm.
see anything wrong with what SVG is doing. He's watched them, studied them, and he's like, unlike V8 supercars, we're not allowed to touch. You guys have proven we're allowed to touch. You run all over each other, so I'm going to do it, and I don't blame him. And so he roughed some people up to get his way back up through there, and he won, dominated the weekend. So we'll see what happens, uh, you know, going forward. So we're coming up.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
real quick, on last thing I have on Chicago is wondering your thoughts on Catherine Legg making the show over Corey Heim. I know Corey Heim screwed up, broke the car, and limped it around and did what he could, but it's still she qualified in to the show
Mhm.
on decent speed. Really, I mean, it was.
Yeah,
I mean, you watched her lap; it was a decent lap. So
I'm, I was impressed. Um, especially when you think about who she sent home, Corey Heim, and yeah, he tore up the car, but I mean, the guy can do no wrong in the truck series. So I was expecting a little better from him in the Cup car, based on that, and Denny's praise for him. And mistakes happen, but I'm glad to see her progressing because her very first outing, especially after the Helio fiasco, with the way we started the season and the provisional and everything, it's good to see her get in there and prove that she didn't just, receive a provisional. She earned her spot, and that was good.
yeah, and her words after I think really helps the sport, saying that it was harder to make this race than the Indy 500.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that's a testament to how hard these cars are to drive, how tough the competition is. You know,
Yep.
yeah, SVG has a sizable advantage here because of his at the road races in general, just like Allmendinger because of their past skill in either open wheel and kart or Australian V8 supercars. That being said, the cup drivers for road races, because we've been doing it for so long now and been doing so many of them, are not slouches. These guys have gotten really good. It's not a throwaway race for anybody. They put a lot of
Yeah.
time into it in the sim. Um, Others, they go run additional series. They go do other things like Trans Am and stuff. So I think it's good. It brings good credibility. So
I just wanted to bring that up.
yeah. So moving on outside of the racing portion, but into things that came out this weekend. So back to our good buddy Daniel Suarez. So last week was announced, or early in the week was announced, he would not be returning. They haven't named his replacement yet, but we all know it's going to be Zillage. Um, that was
If it's
pretty.
not Zillow, there's going to be a lot of money lost in Vegas.
Yep. If it's not, then like I don't know who the hell you'd put in that car. If you don't think,
No,
if all of a sudden you don't think Zillage is ready, I don't know why you would get rid of Daniel. I don't know who you're going to put in. I mean, Daniel is a good driver. Daniel does know how to win, and he's won at plate races, and he's good at road racing, and he's a Xfinity Series champion. So, um, I don't know where he'll go, but I will say I read an article. I don't know if you saw this, but now that the Band-Aid's been ripped off this weekend, he was doing an interview, and he said that when he got his new uh, crew chief Swenderski, he had said that basically because Trackhouse as a brand has stepped out into so many things that there a lot of details are being missed. Which, if you look at it, does kind of make sense because they've
yeah,
gotten into motocross. They had to get into motocross a year earlier. Justin Marks mentioned like he had to speed up his timetable on that, or he wouldn't be able to get his spots on the grid. But you look at where Ross is, and Ross was a heavier contender the first year, and yeah, the cars were everybody was more equal, but Ross is a top 10 level driver in my mind.
Yeah,
And he's carried that car on his back all season. And Daniel hasn't been as competitive as he has been in the past with those same cars. And I do think it's because Trackhouse has spread themselves too thin with everything they're doing. Justin's trying to grow the brand, and there's a lot of chaos there when you think about it. Pitbull announced at the beginning of the year he was stepping out. I think that ultimately signed the death warrant on Suarez is staying there because of the sponsorship and the slam schools, like all the initiatives that Pitbull and the
I
Latino community were carrying
I
behind.
still believe that's why he left is because Marks wanted to get rid of Suarez.
Either that or because he was growing it more than Mr. Worldwide probably wanted it to grow. Like it was becoming too much. Like because at the end of the day, Pitbull's still an entertainer. He still has his worldwide concerts and everything like that. So if you grow it too much and it becomes too time consuming, then hey, my first job is still as an entertainer or a performer.
Yep.
It basically would be like if 23XI was being run while Michael Jordan was still in his prime playing for NBA Finals championships. He wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I've got to focus on what got me here first and foremost, where Justin has nothing but time to focus on the one thing. So,
Yeah.
but I thought it was interesting that Daniel's comments basically saying that he and his crew chief both made the same observations that, once Trackhouse started growing and expanded so much, that the same level of attention to details on the NASCAR side of things, you could see them slip away a little bit. And that he basically said it was a relationship where, all right, now you're just roommates instead of, friends or whatever, kind of that kind of situation. So I don't know where Daniel goes from here. We don't know what rides are going to be available yet. To that end, Rick Ware Racing, the majority control of their charters sold for 9 figures. I mean, that's a big deal when you think about that. And the charter system that says what the market thinks this is valued that these things are valued at. So places even more emphasis on the lawsuit and what happens there. Corey or not, yeah, Cody has a seat for one more year next year, they said. But one thing I don't remember which news source I heard it on, but oh, it was Landon and Parker. They were talking about it, but apparently leading up to the renegotiation, then charters really starting to sell for big money. Apparently, the charters were being traded behind closed doors between teams to build up the value ahead of time. Did you know that? Like they were
No, but it makes
bound
sense.
between teams to build up the asset value, kind of like insider trading, and that hadn't really been talked about. So they were
Well, I
just
mean,
around.
some
Which
of it's not behind closed doors. I mean, you look at uh before Petty sold his, he he uh he was rent he was renting one for a while, then he bought one, and then somebody else was renting one, and they bought it, and there was a bunch of that going on. So it wasn't
wait,
really behind the scenes.
no, no, not all of it, but some of it was behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Apparently, but that was what they were talking about. That essentially the charter movement of these pieces, we'll just treat them like we'll just call them what they are. They're like essentially like monopoly tiles on a board at this point. Like Park Avenue's worth this.
I don't know what Barney Visser's doing right now, but I'm sure he's looking at himself going, "Damn it, I got out too soon."
I think he's glad to have just gotten out. Like Joe Gibbs was running him in the ground financially. But yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
but he would have
Yes,
got
sir.
that money back.
And then again, it just makes Timmy Hill and those guys, or who? What? No, not Timmy Hill. What the hell are the ones that sold the
The
one for like
78
8
team.
million? Yeah, the 78
Yep.
team, BJ McLeod and his guys, when they
Yeah,
sold
BJ McLeod.
when that
They
group,
bought they bought the 78 charter for
yeah,
like 2 million, and then they
yeah,
went and sold it for,
40,
what was it, 40 million?
40 million.
Yep.
And that was one charter, and you
Yeah.
just saw Rick Wares, who run at the back, controlling interest of his two charters go for at 9 figures, you're talking a minimum of 100 million.
So that one, that whole thing is just sketchy to me because there is a lawsuit against them by Legacy, about one of the charters for next season.
Yep.
How do you sell a team while in court essentially for one of the teams?
Well, I'd
It's
like to know who the controlling interest party is because they haven't named who the buyer is. They just said it was
they
sold.
they
Did they name who the
they
buyer
named
was?
him, but I can't remember. I've never heard of him before.
Right. So it's some. I'm assuming. I don't. I have to go look it up, but I'm assuming it's some like venture capitalist type deal,
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
investment firms. So if that's the case, well, those kind of people are really good in court compared to like your typical sports teams. So
Yeah,
I don't think you dump $100 million on two assets if you're not sure you're going to keep them. So, and
I
it's a lot of money. So like all
I
this
do.
are now jumping into the F1 scale of finances because
Yeah,
if Rick Wares are worth 100 million, and that's two, that means that HMS has to be north of half a billion at least. JGR has
mhm.
to be worth north half a billion. That
Because the up until last year, the five was the number one charter team when it comes to payouts and stuff like that because of the
you're
last 3 years. So you got to imagine that just that one car is probably worth that, or
and
that one piece of paper. I'm sorry, that
now
one piece of paper.
now if I'm Rick Hendrick, now I'm like, now I'll sell. Not that I would he would ever get out of racing, but if I ever wanted to get all my money back and then some
Well,
with interest, now I can do it.
well, he could say he could sell the
Mhm.
let's just say sell the five charter because that's the one worth the most money.
Yeah.
He could sell the five charter and go to the three teams because that's what they're supposed to be doing now is three teams.
Yeah.
And
Profit probably
you know,
125 million.
well, it's not profit because of how long he's been in the sport, but he'll get some of that damn money back,
I guarantee you he hasn't put 125 million into that team.
In 41 years.
Into that one team, into his
Oh, okay,
yes, but into
okay.
one car he hasn't put in
I
125
I
million.
got you. You're
No.
right.
Yes,
You're
yes,
right.
across four cars for sure. But I mean, again, we're talking if you're talking I could sell Hendrick Motorsports today for $500 million. And that's probably what it would go for, or Joe Gibbs Racing,
That's
if
probably more than that.
at least, or if not more. If I sold you the building and all the assets
Yeah.
based off what Rick Ware sold for, and you know there's a $7 billion TV contract out here, and I've got four of the top 10 asset earning pieces, that's a low check to write for a venture capital firm to write a $500 million. I say
Yep.
that working for a company that when I we worked when we first sold, we sold the first time the company as a whole for 1 billion as an IT company. When they sold off just our government piece for 2.5 billion 4 years later. So, like for an investment firm, that's chump change to be like to buy out a Hendrick Motorsports, to buy out a Joe Gibbs.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Here, take. Go ahead. Yeah.
so I mean, which is crazy. It's just crazy that you're talking. I mean, I just think back to Rusty Wallace Racing, Ricky Rudd Racing, Darrell Waltrip, DEI, like the amount of loss all these companies took back in the day. That if this system had been around then, some of those people would still be here in
Mhm.
terms of in the racing community. You
How
know,
Robert Yates Racing
yep,
disappeared.
RYR or you know, um, that then sold again, that then sold to like you just got all
That's
these different.
that's something that me and Chris talk about often. He gets upset that this is making it to where the guy in the garage can't bring a car anymore. And it's like even if he did, he ain't gonna do nothing. The days like where David Gilman shows up to Kentucky and wins in a unsponsored car are over.
No, yeah, no, you're not wrong. But I mean, I guess which one's better for the health of the sport? The ability for and you have to pick which pool of water you want to put your foot in or put your feet in. Do you want to be the small southern roots-based sport that many old school fans like us want? But then that means you got to shrink some of the TV stuff and everything. Or do you want to be in the big time? You know, I can foresee a future where Prime is the sole broadcaster of the TV rights,
Well,
or
back that a
50% of
little
it.
bit.
But
NASCAR is in a lawsuit right now, and partially part of that is the fact that didn't they don't want the charters, and yet that's the thing that makes the sport great right now is the
Yeah,
charters. So like they are stepping on their own foot
yeah. They would rather
by
have the charter so that they can control more of the money. But the charters are what fueling the growth of the sport to the point
yeah,
of Ram Dodge has come back and they've got to figure out what they're going to do because it was talked about earlier this week, I think Parker and them as well. But basically, if Ram slash Dodge doesn't buy an existing team, then in order to buy any of those four charters that are held for a new manufacturer, you still would have to pay whatever the current charter value is valued at or close to it because you're now divesting the pool of money that you're lowering it or diluting it to the teams that are out there because right now there's 36, now there'd be 37 or 38 or 39.
yeah,
So just like F1, to buy your spot on the grid, it might cost you 250 million because you're talking about the loss across the garage, not loss to one competitor, but to 36 competitors. So I'm interested to see what Dodge decides to do if they pick up an existing team and there's a handful of people that it would be useful for to do that. However, I'm leaning toward them not picking up an existing team based on the fact that they're starting their own engine program. They're building their own engine shop like a TRD. They're going the TRD method versus the Chevy, Hendrick, RCR, RYR, where the Roush, you've got all the different small engine shops, and they eventually partner together to make Chevy engines or Ford engines or
right,
whatever. So since they're going the TRD method and they're going to create their own motor power plant holistically, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars invested in that alone.
yeah,
It makes me think they're going to buy charters and kind of go the Evernham method and go get me one guy to build my brand back, but I'm not going to go buy a big team. I'm going to solicit for maybe a new somebody who hasn't been able to get in the sport before, and then we go get us a couple drivers. We go get us another SVG type that would get me contention for one platform type of racing. Then I go get me another guy that might be a good specialist at another type of racing that we're bringing up. So I'm interested to see what they do over the next 2 years there. But the announcement of an engine shop is very telling to me that they're not planning to just go out and because it's not like you can go buy RCR. RCR and HMS have a partnership on the engine program side of things. So you would have to split that partnership up. You're not going to go buy Roush Yates motors because you would have to pick, there would be several Ford partners you would have to pick up. You couldn't just pick Penske because of the tie-in with the RYR motor program. Same thing with Yates and so forth. So or with S was it BK Racing essentially or
yeah.
RFK. So it would be very interesting to see where they go from there. So that was
Yeah.
two things I wanted to talk about, or three possibly. Any thoughts there?
Um, I hadn't heard that about Dodge, but I think it's the best way to go because I don't, I've never felt like the Elmore engine was all that great. So I think building your own engine program is the
Yeah,
best route to control your parts and so on and so forth.
yeah. I mean, they're not investing that money for trucks. Trucks, you don't have to do that. You have that stock engine that pretty much everybody runs. So you don't, it's not like you got to do that to go into trucks. So you're clearly doing this with an eye on Cup. And
Okay,
why
well,
would you do that if you didn't already have
you
a
don't you
plan kind of?
don't have to run the Elmore engine in a truck, do you?
No, but I mean, most of them do from a cost saving standpoint. So Dodge coming back to trucks, and again, this is just all conjecture, but Dodge coming back to trucks, they came back to trucks first because it was the easiest entry point of entry from a cost standpoint. I just have to build a body. The motors are already built. It's not like I got to bring an engine program when I come. So where Cup, you've got to bring an engine program. You've got a lot more stuff you have to bring to the table to start in Cup as a new manufacturer. Well,
Okay, so
if I'm dumping the money into a motor shop, I'm planning to be here for a long time.
yeah,
That's to me, that's even if it's not a sign of whether or not they'll buy an existing team, it's definitely a sign of their commitment. Why, you wouldn't put down that kind of money unless you plan to be here for a while. You're not just joining to join trucks. You're planning to be a serious contender in the fourth manufacturer again.
Right. I agree with you there. So I guess I didn't really think that through very well, but yeah, it definitely looks like cup they're coming to cup. They're just being quiet about it,
Mhm.
or slightly sneaky.
Yep. Which, I mean, if they're doing that, I would imagine whether if you get a Honda or a Nissan or somebody like that that comes on along, they would have to do the same thing. Um, which Parker Kligerman had talked about this, and I think it's an interesting discussion point because of the new manufacturer options. Instead of everybody having to build the same style of motor, with all these new manufacturers and all the different engine technologies they're all looking at, BMW with hydrogen things, they kind of do this. They do this now in IMSA. Parker mentioned that you can run whatever motor you want. Doesn't matter if you bring 1,000 horsepower or 800 horsepower or 300 horsepower. We're going to limit the series by a torque converter. You can only put so much power to the road.
Right.
It's how you level the field. So, you don't have to change your engine technology to come here. That's good for manufacturers. So you
Oh
can
yeah.
so you can bring, let's say, Honda and their turbocharged V6 to compete against a twin V8 or something like that. And even
Especially
though,
with this 670/750
yep.
horsepower that we're
So,
dealing with now.
and with the way they designed this car, even though, nobody asked for it and they turned it into an IMSA, it makes sense because this car's platform is designed with that capability, with the
And
hybrid
NASCAR does
capability.
kind of own them,
Yep.
so it's
So,
not like they don't know what they're dealing with.
yep. So I just think that's an interesting, we'll see how that plays out over the next 2 years. As
Yeah.
Dodge prepares to enter the Cup foray. They got to come up with a body. They've got to get it aero tested and approved by the other three manufacturers. They've got to come up with an engine. Those are really the only two things they got to come up with. The rest of it's all kit. They're all Brembo brakes. They're all, Bilstein shocks or whoever.
With all that being said, it is July 6th, I believe, as we film this,
Yep.
and we still don't have a Chevrolet body for
I was
next
wanting to
year.
talk about that. Like, we have no idea what the hell. There's not even a whisper. We haven't
Yeah,
seen we've seen all
I,
kinds of fan concepts. But we haven't seen a single hint from Chevy, from Skunk Works, from GM as a whole, like which way they're going. Are we going to
I
Cadillac?
know in
Or
our group chat you said something a few weeks ago, but I never could find anything solid on that. So I
yeah, I
think,
saw some stuff about them bringing the Impala back. I think it was the Impala.
yeah, it
And
was the Impala.
so, and if that's
But
true, that'd be great.
I never could find anything solid. Everything I saw was AI, and it's so hard to not.
I agree.
AI is so good right now that it's hard to tell what's good, what's right, and
Yeah, what's real and
what
what's
is.
not.
Yeah,
But I agree. That's a big sticking point. Like we're going into, we got 7 races till the playoffs, and we don't even know what car Chevy's running next year yet.
we have 17 races to go in the season,
Yep.
and we don't know what we're running. I mean, I'm sure the damn teams know, but the fans don't. The the your Jeff Clucks of the world, they don't know, and it,
Well, and the thing is, with regard to that about not knowing, I don't think you want to release this information in the playoffs. So if you don't release it the next 7 races, I'm assuming you're going to wait till after the season to debut whatever because you don't want to take away from the spotlight you're putting on your teams that have qualified for the playoffs. I wouldn't want to anyway.
the Camaro was unveiled during the playoffs.
Was it?
hmm if I remember right, in 20 was it 17? Yeah,
Yep.
2017. It was all the way into the playoffs before they unveiled it, and nobody saw that coming.
Okay. I guess I forgot that. I was thinking it was earlier in the year because
No,
they'd already been
it
racing the
was
Camaro
already.
in the Xfinity Series, and everybody wanted them to race it in the Cup Series, but it hadn't
Yeah.
been formally announced yet. I'd love for them to bring back the SS personally. They still make that damn thing over in the Holdens and stuff like that. I would love for them to bring that stuff back, but
I don't see it happening.
no, but I mean, it's a great aero platform. That's the point. Like whatever
Yeah.
you design needs to be a good aero platform, be very aero neutral so that you can build and, you know, contain your balance because these cars build so much downforce underneath. You need to be able to shift the aero balance depending on which direction it is. So I think whichever car you pick, same thing with Dodge, whichever car you pick to come in with is crucial now more than ever because of all the aero downforce that's generated under the car. If they switch back the other direction and start pushing it over the top, your front end design very much matters.
Hmm.
Your fender design matters. Right now, where it doesn't have as big a play because everything's underneath with the diffuser, but in order to get some of the aero deficiencies of this car fixed, at some point you're going to have to shift some of that back to the top of the car instead of the bottom.
Right.
So, uh,
And I I am for the first time in
I
many
think for a
years.
car designer, that would make it really hard to like pick a car if I was an aerodynamicist engineer to figure out which car I want to put in, knowing that it could screw me.
Mhm. This is the first with sort of in the same topic, with the talking about bringing 750 back for short tracks and road courses.
Yeah.
I think is the rumor. I know short tracks for sure. Uh, it's making me debate. I've never been to Martinsville, never really wanted to go to Martinsville, but with that potential out there, it is making me think about going to Martinsville this fall. Uh, and I'm hopeful that they do it because we need something.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, no matter what you do aerodynamically, at the end of the day, the more power you put to the ground, the more you can spin the tires, period.
Yep.
So, and the more you spin the tires, the more you create wear and heat, which is what creates passing. You now have to save your tires. I mean, obviously Bristol was not the spring Bristol race last year was not the way you want to see it, but it was the reality of what you need. The hotter the tires get, they disintegrate, they wear. We'd like to see them wear differently, but that's what created all that passing. And it showed that tire management, equipment management very much matters. And we've seen that increase at other places. So um, I would love it if you brought it to Dover because Dover, like Bristol, is one of those places you have to manage your tires coming up out of the launch of the corner after you've barreled down in there. And spinning the tires is a key characteristic of tracks like that at Martinsville, at Dover, places like that where you slide up out of the corner and depending on who manages that the best, usually ends up out front.
Well, you're definitely going to be sliding down the corner because they're racing there in July for the first time in
Yeah.
eons,
Yeah.
and it is going to be slick.
So, all right. I think that's all the big news I could think of. You got
Yeah,
anything?
I don't think I have anything else outside of I think we slightly talked about it earlier, but the rumor of them going to San Diego, I am not for that. I would rather go to Laguna Seca if we're going to another part of California. If you're going to do it on a real course. And Laguna Seca has never had a NASCAR race. Why not go there?
Yeah. I feel like if we're gonna, so if we have to have a street course, which I'm not in favor of at all, I don't think that's what this series is all about. It's what NASCAR is not all about that. But if we got to have one, I don't want it in San Diego for a multitude of reasons. One, San Diego is really not that nice. Having been there for decades for work, it's not a very nice area anymore. It used to be a very nice area, but California politics has allowed it to kind of turn into a dumpster, in my opinion.
It was so nice that the
Places.
Chargers left,
Yeah, I mean,
Jurassic Park left. I
I
mean,
just to like tell you a story. Like I went to this place, fantastic hot dog place. That we get in the car, we're driving, I'm looking, and there's mountains of trash and cars up on blocks and everything. And I'm looking around, I'm like, are we still in America?
yeah.
Because you're not far from Tijuana. So I'm like, are we still in the US? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, are you sure? Like I literally thought I left and went to a third world country. That's how disgusting and bad it was. And we want to bring
And
a
now, and now Ben Kennedy thinks that's a good idea.
And the only reason why I'm upset about wanting to go to San Diego, not even that, because I would never go to a street race there anyway. So whether they go there or not has zero impact on me as the race fan, other than watching it, because I'm never going to go there. But we had other tracks in California for the California market, and we let them go. We let Irwindale go. We tore down Auto Club. If the California market is so important to you, there are other tracks still in California you could use. Is it in Long Beach there?
Yeah,
So we could go to Long Beach. There's a street course. We could go to Lagoon Seca. I would love to see that, especially coming down through the corkscrew. Hell yeah, that would be bad. That would just be awesome. You know,
I could see somebody
yeah,
Husqvarna their way right into that thing.
yeah, I could see him coming off the thing and he like just skips it, comes over and he's airborne and like just jumps to the bottom. But either way, just my point is if we need to be in the California market so bad, why did you sell Auto Club in the first place? And I get the financial value, but you built a car that excels at that track. And we saw it at Michigan. Fantastic race. You saw it with the last race at California. We didn't even give this car a chance there. And that track was only getting better. And then, okay, so yeah, you take the money from California, but then you let Irwindale go, which is essentially a small, it's just like Iowa. Like, okay, there's another small track. You could have had that. You let it go. There are other tracks out there. We don't need to build a street race out there to garner the California market. There are tons of other options. If we're going to go street racing, I would like to see us go to places that would better promote the sport than that. I would love to see, I don't know that we ever, well, I'm not going to say we don't ever, because we probably will see a street race in Vegas. The cars under the neon lights of the strip would be awesome, just like for F1.
I've, I've
Um,
heard rumors of them putting in a street race in Cincinnati.
that would be awesome too.
It's an hour.
Under
It's not even an hour from Kentucky Speedway.
what's it would be awesome from the standpoint of what's the arch, have them race like through the arch. That would be
We won't
awesome.
have it on.
Where's that? No, it's St.
Well,
Louis. So I'm thinking St. Louis. But either way,
yeah,
like those kind of places, I think if we have to have a street race, that's where we should go. There's nothing in San Diego like Grant Park or something like that. There's Gaslamp District, but the roads there are so awful. You can't race these cars. That's the other thing. In San Diego, the roads are horrible. You would have to pave a lot of stuff to be able to race there because the way California does their roads due to the weather, like it's not because it almost never rains in that part of the country. So, and you couldn't race there in the rain either because when it does rain, because it barely ever rains, it's so dusty and all the oils and everything come up it'd be like driving on glass with these slick tires.
hmm
So anybody who's never been there, like that might say I'm full of shit. Like having driven there a lot when my first job as a contractor for a decade, my boss was out there. I spent a lot of time in California. It is a sketchy place to drive in the rain in Southern California because they don't get very much rain out there. To the point where they have water restrictions and everybody has rock gardens for yards. Like they don't have grass. So, um, now they design their roads like NASCAR tracks. I'll say that. High banked corners and everything. I'd love to see like a on the interstate system, but I'd love to
I
see us.
think
Again, if we have to have a street race, we should go to New York City. We should go to New Jersey. We should go some of these other places that we've wanted to go for a long time and haven't been able to. We have plenty of options in California. We don't need to go to California for a street race. We can go to other
well,
places.
the last thing I have is that there's another rumor going around that Chicagoland is back on the schedule for next year.
That I can't wait for. I know it's not Kentucky. I really want
No, I
Kentucky.
mean I'd
I'll
be
take it.
happy. I like Chicagoland. I liked watching it. It has multiple grooves. There was no reason to ever leave Chicagoland. Um, they talk about fan attendance, but really every track at the time was having issues with attendance. Every single track, not just Chicago, not just Kentucky, not just everybody was having attendance issues. So
Well, the thing
Chicagoland's a great race, and if they bring it back, I'll be happy for them. I'll be a little sad if mine. I'm not hearing any rumors about Kentucky, so I don't see Kentucky being on the schedule. But
I
for them
think
to bring
eventually we will go
Chicagoland
back to
back would be
Kentucky.
great.
I do think we will go back to Kentucky. I think we're probably 2 years from it though, because I think it'll take another race falling off somewhere. But I'm glad we're going
There
back to it
are more and more
because
people asking to limit the amount of races that have two races.
yep, and that's what I was going to say. we're seeing more and more discussion about limiting the amount of two race dates. I know they will never do it because that's their guaranteed manufactured racing. I think they should take away a race from Daytona and from Talladega because the racing at the restrictor plates, even though it's not what we use anymore, is so bad with this car that they're not worth watching. They can't
And
make
we
moves.
spoke about it on here. All they got to do is take off some of the spoiler.
Yep. But if we're not going to fix the car so that you can actually race there, then we should take some dates away from them and take the cars to tracks that excel. Go to Kentucky, go to South Boston, go to some of these other places that, you know, if Bowman Gray is good enough to host the Clash, and some of these other places that only Iowa with its, smaller fan attendance, but good race. Gateway, smaller fan attendance, good race. Well, the fan attendance argument, like you said, that they use to justify to take stuff away to me is a bullshit argument. Because if fan attendance was the key factor or weighed so heavily, we wouldn't have left Road America with 200,000 people there. 200,000 people on July 4th. And we said
Yep.
one and done. So fan attendance argument is total bullshit in
Two
my
and
mind.
done. Two and done.
For Cup, was it two? I
Yep.
thought it was just one. Okay, but either way,
21 and 22, I believe it was.
you had 200,000 people there the race that they left to go to Chicago street race. First two were rained out, and you're creating an event experience. They've made some really bad decisions. So I'm okay with us taking away a Richmond, taking away a Dover, taking away a Pocono. Um, I'd like to not see us lose a Darlington because Darlington is such a well-aged track, puts on such good
Oh,
racing. What's good for one is good for all. So I'm willing to
oh,
give.
hold on a second. I
Yeah.
got a call from NASCAR this past week.
Oh
You
yeah.
want to re-up your spring Darlington tickets? Uh, are you gonna put any money into the amenities? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, we spoke before about this, and I'll remind you. When you go into a bathroom at Darlington Speedway, you are going back in time, like Throwback Weekend suggests.
Yeah.
You're going back to the 50s.
Yeah.
Spend some damn money on your damn racetrack.
And that's the irritating part. Like everybody gives Marcus Smith credit for, all right, he brought back North Wilkesboro and this, that, and the other. And yeah, okay. He entertained it because Dale Jr. kind of like forced it. But he never would have done it had the state not given him money. If the COVID money had not been granted, we don't race at North Wilkesboro. And that's the bottom line, period.
Yeah.
So it's not like he did that as some grand gesture, SMI, to like attribute back to the fans. Um, to bring racing back there. Just like, okay, they got a Xfinity race at Rockingham. We had it, and from what
And
I
it'll be
understand,
gone
they were
now.
told they weren't going to get a cup race, and so they sold it. They're like, well, then we're not putting the money into this. There's no reason to do it.
Yep.
So they're selling it, which is crazy because the race was good. We
Yep.
could go back there. And I get that that area of the country is saturated, but it's also your highest TV viewership market
Hmm.
every week. Every week. The
And it's
reality
been like
is,
that for 30 plus years.
yep. The reality is this sport, no matter
Mhm.
who you bring it to, where you bring it to, at the end of the day, is still a Southern good old boy sport. It will always be a Southern good old boy sport in terms of fans, a blue collar sport. So why would you not take it to the places where the fans show up, where the people tune in and watch?
Yep.
You know, we we don't need to be in California in my mind. We certainly don't need to be in Mexico or Canada. Um, we have series for that. It's called IndyCar. It's called Formula One. It's called,
Well, IndyCar don't do that anymore either.
no,
Nope.
because
Strictly,
it,
strictly US.
yep, you know, if you want to be global, let Formula One handle that nonsense
Yep.
and go ahead and race everywhere. That's fine. No, no, no problem. So
Well, who you got for Sonoma this weekend?
I want, in my heart, I want to pick Larson. I really do. But the ride they've been on since the Indy double, man, it makes it hard to pick him to say that he's going to do well.
All I'm
Um,
going to say is you got 6 poles there, two
I
wins.
know,
I
but it's
mean,
like they're in this like depression cloud of bad luck and just bad
it's got to
decisions.
end sometime. Got
I
to
agree.
end
It's got to
sometime.
end hopefully before the playoffs because he's sitting on a mountain of playoff points and they gonna be
Yep.
worth a damn if he don't get out under this cloud.
You're
But
right.
uh, So I want it to be Larson. I think Ty Gibbs gets his first win this weekend. I really do. He's been second the last two road courses. He's been strong. I think you know, this is a place where SVG didn't run as well last year. Granted, it was his first year and figuring out the car, and it wasn't as, well funded put together. It's going to be different when he shows up this time, but I think based off of the way they're running, that 54 team seems to, have pointed things in the right direction. I think it's going to be Ty Gibbs. And if not Ty Gibbs, and, the default choice of SVG, if Michael McDowell cannot have a mechanical problem, I'm telling you, like he should win to get his way in there.
Yep. I'm with you on the Larson front, but my secondary thing is Chris Buescher.
Yeah, I want him to win. I'm thinking he's going to win at Watkins Glen though, based off last year. I just have a feeling
Yeah.
that's where he's going to come. Um, who I heard a rumor. I don't remember who, but apparently there's a single digit car number with a driver that may be out. I'm trying to go through who all the single digit car numbers are that would be out, and the only person I can come up with that would be out would be Justin Haley.
Yeah. What do you mean? That's how they put it out there?
Yeah, it was one of the rumors they were talking about. I don't remember if it was DBC, one of the others, but when they were talking about where Suarez might end up, if I'm Spire, which one's the better choice? Haley, Suarez. One's a champion, cup race winner multiple times, very good across multiple disciplines. Haley really hasn't shown me very much. Rodney
Again, a
left.
multi-year deal.
I don't think he had a multi-year deal. From what I understand, a lot of these guys and then again, this is just what you and I listen to
That's
and
why
everything.
McDowell went there. Yeah, got a multi-year deal.
But from my understanding is it's basically like a one and one. Like you have a one and an option. Well, Suarez is on the table. And if I have to pick between Suarez and Haley, I'll take Suarez any day of the week.
I guess
I-
that would just depend on Gamebridge's thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. They're a majority investor, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
I hadn't heard that rumor. I haven't been listening to podcasts much lately.
well, I heard I heard this on Parker and Landon's thing when they were talking about like, okay, well, Suarez is out, where would he go? And because there's not a lot of movement, but they had mentioned that there was a single car team or a single number car in the Cup Series that with a driver that may be out. Well, it ain't Chase Elliott, it ain't Ross Chastain, so there's the 9 and the 1. It ain't Austin Cindric. It's not
Could
Austin
be.
Dillon. Austin Dillon ain't leaving unless he's picking the driver that's going there.
It could be Austin Cindric though. I mean,
Where would he go? He's won now twice the last 2 years. Why would you get rid of him? I
I
mean, I
mean,
agree. Like
they
Tim
could
Stewart's
be
gone, but
bringing Josh Berry over.
yeah, but then I would just see Cindric going to the 21. I don't think you would lose Cindric entirely.
I don't think I. I mean, I see Cindric's value at plate tracks, and that's it. He's not a good road racer with this car. He's not.
That's fair.
He has laps. He has moments, and I do mean moments of where he looks really good, but then he's a bowling ball everywhere else.
Okay.
That's just me though.
Well, I mean, let's look at if it's true and it's a single digit car person. Okay,
And
so it's definitely
if
not
if
Ross Trash
if
Chain.
Hendrick helped put Justin Haley into that car, he's not gonna go after Daniel Suarez, who has failed
No.
at Haas, who has failed at Gibbs. I mean, I just don't see that.
All right, fair enough. That's a good point. But I mean, all right, so you've got Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, because there's the 2, the 3, and the 1. I don't think any of those three are going anywhere,
The
realistically.
one's not going anywhere. No,
Noah Gregson has a multi-year deal. That was what
and
got a
that's
lot of
how
these guys to
he.
go sign there.
Yeah.
Uh, Larson ain't going anywhere. Brad
What?
Keselowski could step out of his own car and put
I
Suarez.
I've been saying Priest is going to
But
be
I
in the
agree.
system.
I think if Brad and RFK aren't acquiring a permanent third charter, that Priest is the obvious replacement for Brad. Um, Haley is the first one that comes to mind. Kyle Busch ain't going anywhere unless he wants to. Chase Elliott ain't going anywhere. That's it. There are no more single digit cars. So to me, the obvious choice would be Haley. But I agree with you. It could be Cindric. I just don't see it. Um, I've won for you the last 2 years. I don't know that I would get rid of you. Um, and he had an opportunity. He could have easily won 4 races this year with the way he's performed at plate races. So, um,
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's great at plate races. I mean, he was good at road races on the old platform
yeah.
when he was coming in and doing here and there's. But I haven't seen shit from him in this car.
I mean, you're not wrong. He's been a bowling ball or a wrecking ball this year at the road racing so far. So I don't know. But well, that's all I got, man.
Yep, same here.
All right. Well, we'll cut this one then, and we're going to try and do an episode later this week to cover the stuff we didn't get to over the last couple of weeks. We've got stuff to talk about with Nashville, with Atlanta, Michigan, like just
Okay. Yep.
Pocono. We have several races. We apologize for not being around. We'll figure out what we'll try and cram those into one. Just uh, what's transpired to get us to this point. Um, I guess the last thing we touched on it really briefly. What are your overall thoughts of the TNT broadcast? Like, I'm not after having Prime, I'm trying to have an open mind with TNT, but because Prime was so good, not being bound by the TV windows, I think it sets up TNT for failure. Even they could do a perfect job, and I think they'd still be set up for failure because their Prime wasn't limited to the TV frame schedule, if you will.
I will say I've been watching the races on Max
Hmm.
and not on DirecTV. So for TNT, so I've been watching through Max, which I know is the same thing. You're still getting commercials. Um, but as far as the coverage itself, like I said earlier, the graphics package is quite boring. There's nothing exciting about it. Um, Everybody's still doing this, the side, you know, be
Yeah.
over here. CW's got that on lock. I mean, I'm hoping next year everybody goes to what the CW's doing across the bottom of the screen instead of on the side. Um, I don't feel as like I'm not a big fan of Alan Cavana, so his
Yeah.
pit reporting to me and I can't remember the other dude's name. But the pit reporting just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I know you still got Junior and you got the same crew in the booth, but it just feels just way different.
And we
And
lost Carl, right? And
yeah, Carl, and then with
Corey.
Chada's in the pits, but I guess I haven't paid close enough attention to see how she's doing with that.
But we
But
lost
that
Carl, we lost Corey
we lost
LaJoy.
Carl and Corey were very good to listen to,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so that part of it. Now I haven't watched True's. I haven't watched the show from Larry McReynolds and Jeff Burton. Maybe it's good through them, and
Same. I
you
haven't.
know,
I need to do that to give it a fair chance to see what they're doing with the alt cast or whatever. But I will say the one thing I'll say about being on TNT now, and this is going to work to NASCAR's detriment. And this was one of the downfalls of splitting it up into like four different providers, essentially. Denny Hamlin mentioned it on his, it's harder to find all this crap now. Like they really do need to seriously consider for the next TV contract. It shouldn't matter who the supplier is. There needs to be a NASCAR app. And all the
hmm
content is in the app. Doesn't matter who the provider is, and the provider can put it in their own platform as well. But you should just be able to go to the NASCAR app and turn on the race, turn on qualifying, and it puts the banner around whoever the
that,
thing. Because if Denny Hamlin can't find it, and he works in the damn series, and you can't get it because this provider doesn't have an app or the app doesn't show it, or
uh,
you're out of the
Chris
market,
had this
or
issue this week. He watched the race on TNT last week. This week
yep,
he doesn't have TNT.
yep,
His provider took TNT off, but he had True. So it's
yeah,
like, he had to watch the alt cast.
right. Like
So
I have YouTube TV, and it's been pretty good for most things, but it's kind of the same thing of the problem you have with CW. with TNT and some of these others. You're at the mercy of whatever market you're in. And if you're trying to grow your sport and you're not going to be on the big network, then you need to have it dedicated in an app. And
Yeah, so
that's my problem
just
with
like
bouncing around.
I do know that when there's races in the fall during preseason football,
Yep, they get blacked
then
out.
Your New York market is going to show the Giants. Not
Yeah.
they're not going to show the race. They're going to show the Giants or the Jets or something like that.
Well, yeah,
So
because I mean, a million or 2 million or 3 million people watching a NASCAR race is still drowned out by 10, 15 million watching NFL any day of the week.
even if it's preseason bullcrap.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't used to be a football guy, and I'll be honest, I'd rather watch preseason football than some of the races we have sometimes. So,
I'll never be there. I'm not been really big into the racing lately, but preseason football is about the worst thing in the world for me. It's so boring.
nah, on now.
It
I'm
preseason
just
football to me is like what baseball is for you.
okay. Well, maybe
Okay.
it's just because like I'm happy to see him get back on, but and it wears off. But preseason is so short that it's like, man, whatever. But all right, now I'm done. I just wanted to
All
talk
right.
about the coverage real
You're
quick.
good.
All right. Well, I'm glad we finally got together to be able to do this, and we'll try and sync up and do something for later in the week. Uh, thanks everybody.
I'm definitely good with Sunday nights after the race.
Yeah, we're gonna try
Definitely
and shift to
good.
doing like post race as much as possible now that I'm pretty much done moving. Uh, I can go back to a more regular schedule. Again, apologies. Uh, we suck. We'll do better. But that's our show. Thanks for listening. Have a good evening.